What's up, Auburn? Pastor Crespo here with Pastor Dustin Hall of the Try Jesus Auburn podcast. I don't know what time is it. Good morning, good afternoon?
I don't know.
Okay, how you doing?
Morning. I'm doing all right.
All right, good. Yeah, this is what happens when I'm tired. But anyway, it's good to be here. I'm glad you're here joining us. We are here with another Q&A.
Yeah.
We had, of course, the opportunity to get out there in the community. And the simple question was, if you could ask God one question, what would it be?
Mm-hmm.
And so we're sharing the responses that your fellow Auburnites is.
We promised everybody we'd answer on the podcast, so that's why we're doing these episodes.
That's right. So here we are. I hope you're watching. We have a young lady here who asked this question, and her name is Anaya. So I'll let her ask the question, and she's asking a good question.
Mm-hmm.
And so, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. All right, so tell me, before you ask the question, you got to tell us your name.
Anaya.
All right, Anaya, what's the question?
So Corinthians 16:14 says, "Let all that you do be done in love." Okay.
Well, you got to talk to the microphone.
How do we do that when there's so much hate out there?
That is an excellent question.
So Anaya is a theologian. All right, give it up, girl. Dustin, I guess the thing that struck me about that was that here's this student getting her, just going through line, getting her back to school equipment. And she asked a pretty deep question, I thought.
Yeah. And had a verse.
She had a Bible verse. She was ready. Yeah. And so this is the question Anaya has, Pastor Dustin. So the time is yours.
Man, that's a deep one. And I had to think about how to answer this too. And the thing that first came to my mind was a passage in the Bible in John chapter 1. So let me look that up here if I can find my Bible app. There it is. John chapter 1 and verse 10. It says, "He was in the world," that he is Jesus, "and the world was made through him, yet the world did not know him. He came to his own and his own people, and they did not receive him. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become the children of God." And it's an amazing thing. This is talking about when Jesus was born and came to the earth and lived his life. People that should have known him, should have recognized him, should have seen him. He's the creator. He's the savior. He's the one who loves us. He's the one who provides for us. On top of that, you had the Jewish people who were passionately looking for the Messiah. And here he was, and nobody recognized him. And so Jesus, being the embodiment of love, he is love. He represents love. And the world longing for love didn't recognize love when love was standing right in front of them.
Wow.
And how can that possibly be? You think about why that is. And I think the best way to answer that is to look deeper into why Jesus came. So Jesus, being love, entered a world full of darkness. And another part of that passage talks about darkness and light. He was light who entered darkness. Why did he do it? Why did he come into this dark place who he knew ahead of time wouldn't receive him and accept him and love him? And so how do we do that? How do we enter this world of darkness and be love? And I think for Jesus, and the scriptures bear this out, he wanted to come here to rescue us from what this world and sin and suffering has done to us.
Yeah.
And the reason why this world, people didn't recognize Jesus was because this world traumatizes us to the level of it affects the way we think. It affects the way we treat people. It affects our idea of right and wrong. And it has an effect on us so great that sometimes we don't even know right from wrong, light from dark, wrong from right.
Yeah.
And so for Jesus to be right in front of them and they didn't recognize him, he had to have the heart of knowing that he wouldn't be received and accepted, but yet wanting to minister to bring light and hope into the darkness.
Yeah. You bring up something very deep. This young lady asked a very deep question, and I think if I look at the question from the perspective, and I don't know how old she is. We got her parents' permission, but I don't know. She's a teenager. For someone that has not lived that long, you may say, "Boy, this is really bad right now." But you just pointed out Jesus is light come into darkness, meaning that this stuff has been going on forever. It's always been this way. People just don't get along.
Yep.
And that's why Jesus came, right? So yeah, I think it's interesting too. Probably one of the things that young people, maybe not everyone, needs to understand is, people hate each other, but a lot of people that are into the hate is because they don't have God in their hearts.
Yeah. So some of the darkness we choose and bring on ourselves. I think that's what we need to realize, though, is we often look at the actions and the behaviors of other people, and we think, well, you're full of hate, you're full of darkness, and to some degree that might be true, and some people do choose that. But so much of who we are comes from the way we've been brought up, what we've been taught, what we've experienced, hardships, trials, tribulations. And that's why Jesus came into the world, because he knew that all of us have been affected that way. And so he wanted to come and be an example of what life is really supposed to be like and what love is really supposed to be like. But in order to love people, in order to embody love and act out love, we have to view people like a doctor would view a patient in the hospital,
right?
Or like a nurse would view a trauma person who's just come into the emergency room or the ICU. We need to see each other as people who have been traumatized or affected by sinfulness and hate in this world.
So you have a better view of people that you might be tempted to hate.
Right. We judge actions and words quickly, but then we don't often stop and think, why are they saying this? Why are they behaving this way?
What would you say to Anaya? I think if she, so the idea, the at least in my mind, right, you explain why things are the way they are, but how can someone like Anaya be a part of the solution in a world that everyone hates everyone?
Yeah,
it seems.
So the first thing we have to do is get to know Jesus, get into a close relationship with him, and ask him to give us his heart. Because what he sees is, he doesn't see us in our traumatized, weakened, sinful state. He sees us the way we could be and should be in him.
That deserves its own. Podcast.
Yeah. So he sees us as his children with all this potential and with all of this, future in front of them. And we often see each other for what we are and the way we behave. So the first thing we have to do is see people the way Jesus sees them, with potential, with hope, with salvation. And then realizing the bad things in us, the bad things we do and say, are a result of living in this world, things that we've been taught, ignorances that we have, biases that we have. And it's not that we don't share blame in that, which we often do, but we have to realize we're all in a way sick.
Yeah.
We all have this disease called sin. We've been affected by this world full of sin, and we are all sinners in need of a savior. We're all sick in need of a physician, and that's Jesus. And so there's a book I would encourage people to read. It's called Forgive to Live. And, there's a lot of good things in there about forgiveness and how to forgive people even when
Forgive to Live.
Forgive to Live.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Traumatizing things to each other, but forgiving in that. But there's a page in there. There's a one page. I'll never forget this. The first picture is of this guy who, it's a close up of his face, and he's behind bars and he's just traumatized, right? And he's crying and he's all upset, and no, it's his face first, no bars yet, so it's just his face. He's traumatized, he's upset, and then it pans back a little bit. The next picture is he's in jail. So now you understand why he's crying and he's so upset. The first picture was his face, he's traumatized. The next picture is, he's upset because he's in jail, right? So taking a step back gives you a little bit more perspective. And then the third picture, it steps back one more time, and it's the man, his face, he's in prison, and there's a movie camera. So he's actually shooting a scene in a movie. So having a little perspective about each other helps us understand the bigger picture.
Right.
And that's what we often don't offer people, is perspective. We judge intent or words, we judge actions, we think we can understand somebody's intentions, or they did this because of this,
Yeah.
and we condemn them or see them as full of hate, when we need to have more perspective on people.
Right.
Takes a step back, try to view them in the bigger picture. And when you do that, you begin to have a little more understanding and sympathy for people. And that's what Jesus is able to do, view us from heaven.
Right.
And see why we're full of that darkness.
It's easier, it seems, to hate people, or it's easier to be like that than it is to do what you're saying, because it takes work.
Yeah.
It takes work to fight your inner, desire or the natural inclination. But, that's probably the reason that we have the problem in this world that we do.
I think the way that we overcome that, though, is that we want people to afford us grace and mercy because of the stuff we've gone through.
But we don't want to do it.
We don't want to do it for other people. Right?
Oh, mercy. Oh, that deserves its own podcast episode as well. No, well, I think of, the what I'm hearing you saying to me is, it's almost like, it's always been this way. This is a result of not having God, but it's almost it seems you're challenging us, myself, and Anaya, if you're watching. You can't control what other people do. You can only control yourself. And so don't be a part of the problem. Right? I sometimes have to remind myself, and I'm not perfect, so pray for me, but I have to remind myself, do not judge a person by their worst moment. Because that tends to sometimes be what we want to do. We remember the person by the worst thing they've done. And that leads to all this other stuff.
And we have to remember that our actions and our words are just what's on the outside. And if a person is projecting hate and anger and whatever, that's just what's on the outside. What must be on the inside? And automatically we go, evil, hatred. But really, it's brokenness.
It is brokenness. Yeah, hurt. Yeah.
Hurt people hurt people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if you can look at people that way and try not to be offended or turned off by the words or the actions, try to view into the heart of the person and say, well, what makes them the way that they are? What must they have gone through?
Yeah.
What must they have lived through to make them that way? Then you can begin to sympathize the way that Jesus can, because he does. He can see the whole picture, understand why we are the way that we are and who we are the way we are, and love us and be a good judge. And so there's a passage here that goes along with that. I think we've got it on the screen. I don't need to look at it on my phone. It's Matthew chapter 9. It says, and Jesus went throughout all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom and healing every disease and every affliction. So there it was. He saw their need. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore, pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into the harvest. So compassion. He had compassion on the crowds.
Dustin, of course, I've used this and heard this text many times. I have to be honest with you. I've never heard this text used in response to a question like what was just asked. The idea of the compassion that you have to have. We always say that we don't have enough people spreading the gospel.
Yeah.
And probably it's fair to say we don't have enough people sharing compassion.
Right.
That's cool.
I've always thought that if you can't have compassion and love people, you have no business sharing Jesus. Because then you're just like a salesman trying to sell something and get people to buy a product. Yeah. But to really be used by God is to love people and have compassion on them, and to love them enough to try to bring hope and joy and peace into their life, which is what Jesus did.
Right.
And so I think the appeal to us is grow close to Christ so that we can have his heart and his compassion, enter into a dark world and be the example of God's kingdom and who Jesus really is.
Well, Pastor Dustin, I hope, Anaya, if you've had a chance to spend a little time with us here, that this has been a good answer to your question, The idea, there's a problem. Be part of the solution. I think we need to be part of the solution. Try Jesus. We did another T-shirt. Anyway, before we end, is there anything else you want to share with our Try Jesus family or Anaya specifically?
I don't think so. We want to find people that are looking for Jesus and make a difference in our world. And so if that's you, contact us, get together with us, come out to one of our meetups, and let's build this family.
There you go. By the way, what you just referred to, tryjesusauburn.com. Check it out. Of course, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, Facebook. But the website is where you go to get in touch with Pastor Dustin, to send in your questions, to find out about meetups. We have one coming up pretty soon.
Mm-hmm.
Go on the website, check it out. We would love to see you there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure we're going to have a great time. Thank you. We'll see you next time.